Hi there, Serial Trader here. Got a request for GBTC, and that's the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust. So I'll do an overview here of it. Um, it essentially acts as a reasonably accurate Bitcoin proxy that you can actually use with a regular brokerage account. So basically, this company Grayscale, they hold a bunch of Bitcoins in trust, and I believe they use Coinbase as a custodian now. So, as far as I know, it's in cold storage, offline storage, and I think Coinbase as a custodian actually insures the holdings as well. So there is some protection there in the event of a hack or something like that. So in a sense, there is some appeal. For instance, if you were to have a regular hack occur on a Bitcoin exchange, and for some reason some of your Bitcoin was compromised or whatever, you may or may not be compensated for that by that exchange, depending on the circumstances. Whereas, in this sense, you have a little bit of security and insurance built into it. But aside from that, let's just actually look at the chart. And okay, so I've basically thrown the same wave count that Bitcoin itself has on here. And that's where from December, we have a low, then we do a 1 up, 2 down ending in February. And we have our wave 3 up, 4 down, and then 5 up ending in June there for that larger wave 1. And then we did a correction down here for wave 2 that very much looks complete both on GBTC and Bitcoin. And now we're starting our next wave up here. But there are some things to point out here. So even though this largely tracks the price action of Bitcoin, it's not perfect. And an example of that is the actual low here on GBTC was in fact in February. So if we were to only analyze GBTC on its own, this could not be a 1-2. I'd have to start the count from here or something, right? Since wave 2 can't retrace more than 100% of wave 1. But because this is just simply a proxy of the underlying Bitcoin itself, that's the only chart that really matters as far as rules and guidelines of the wave principle. This is basically just a inaccurate, or I should say somewhat inaccurate, skewed version of Bitcoin's price action. So you don't want to be too strict with your wave counts on GBTC. You need to actually reference the Bitcoin chart. Kind of like if you're trading GLD, the gold ETF, you definitely want to actually do the wave count on the gold futures, the GEC futures. Or if you're trading an oil ETF like USO or something like that, you want to actually do your analysis on the crude oil futures chart, because again, USO, although it tracks crude oil quite accurately, over time there are some subtle differences as far as certain key levels being violated on USO, but not on crude oil or vice versa. So you basically do the real analysis on the underlines chart, and then just kind of reference it with this for your decisions. Another thing about GBTC, so obviously it doesn't trade on weekends. Bitcoin does. It doesn't trade overnight. Bitcoin does. So that also creates, well, I guess some unique risks to GBTC. So if something big is happening overnight or on the weekend on Bitcoin, there's nothing you can do about it on GBTC, and you're just kind of at the mercy of where the market opens after that significant move happens, whether it be up or down. So my kind of philosophy here with GBTC is it's not good for shorter term trades, unless we're talking intraday. Intraday is fine because, of course, there's liquidity to get in and out intraday. But for something that you're, concerned about overnight risk or anything like that, shorter term, stick with the actual Bitcoin trading. But for longer term trades, I think GBTC is an excellent tool. And so if you're trying to catch a multi-week or multi-month move, and you're doing it based off analysis on BTC, GBTC can work quite well for you. And the thing about GBTC is, so for every 1 unit of GBTC, it represents a certain amount of Bitcoin that has shares issued against it. So roughly 1,000 shares of GBTC or 1,000 units of GBTC equals almost 1 Bitcoin. It's very close to 1, so we'll just call it 1. So if you have 10,000 shares of GBTC, you have roughly 10 Bitcoins of exposure. But the thing about GBTC is there's a premium that it trades at above the actual underlying Bitcoin that it holds, and that premium can fluctuate quite a bit. It can fluctuate between 10% or less, which is usually what it's sitting at when it gets real beat up here. Or I've seen it, well, I mean, in the past, the premium it sometimes got ridiculous. I think it became more than 100% over the actual Bitcoin premium or the actual Bitcoin price if you were to convert. But more typically, when things are trending in a more bullish fashion, you see a 30%, 40%, maybe 50% premium sometimes. And then when it's, when the price of Bitcoin is moving down, the premium of GBTC can go, lower, 20%, 25%, 10% or less in some cases. So basically, it exaggerates the moves of Bitcoin in either direction. So if Bitcoin is going up strongly, GBTC is likely going up even more strongly on a percentage basis. And if BTC is going down strongly, GBTC likely goes down even more strongly because it has to drop to match the price of Bitcoin, and the actual premium over the underlying Bitcoin shrinks as well. But it kind of works out over time to largely mirror the price action. Okay, so all that kind of explained. We definitely have the same structure here on GBTC. Large impulse wave up into June, large corrective wave down into the later part of October there. And now we're embarking on the next wave up in all likelihood. Certainly according to the Bitcoin chart, and certainly this agrees at the moment. So that's kind of the weekly chart view. And let's see. So we know we did that nice 618 retracement on that weekly chart view. Let's see on the Bitcoin chart. So let's see if that kind of lines up here. And you can see we roughly reacted off the same retracement level on GBTC, measuring from the bottom to the top. Again, not perfect, but largely the same. Big reaction off the 618 area, and now going up nicely. Okay, so that's out of the way. So let's go to the daily chart, and we'll just do a little shorter term look here. Now again, this top we had in GBTC was not coincident with the top on Bitcoin. The top on Bitcoin happened over a weekend, a couple weeks ago or whatever. But of course, GBTC and then BTC already started retracing by the time the real markets opened on Monday, or I should say the regular markets opened on Monday. So that top was not reflected on GBTC because of obviously GBTC wasn't trading at the same time it was made on Bitcoin on the weekend. So there are some short-term differences as far as local tops and bottoms, but again, the direction is largely the same. So if I was just going to throw something up here, we got some sort of impulsive wave up on GBTC, largely mirroring the movement of Bitcoin. Again, not perfectly. So 5 up for, say, our first wave up here on GBTC. Looks like we're doing a second wave down. And judging by the weekend action right now, looks like Bitcoin's starting to catch some strength. So possibly we have a low in place here as of Friday on GBTC at 1032. So if that's the case, we have wave 2 low in place. We should be beginning our wave 3 up of a larger impulsive move. And basically, I mean, if you want to try and actually use a stop or define risk here on GBTC, right now I'd still be using this level down here, 835, just because these short-term swings, they're just not precise enough to actually have a hard stop against, unless you're using a major pivot like you did down here at 835. I mean, we're not going to break 835 on GBTC unless Bitcoin really tanks and likely takes out its own equivalent low. So that's a good level to actually base risk for a trade against, or risk for a investment or longer term position against. All right, so that's basically what I'm seeing here on GBTC. Again, it's just essentially an exaggerated, imperfect, but still useful version of Bitcoin that you can play on a regular brokerage account. with potentially some security benefits, being that you don't have to worry about having your actual exchange account hacked or something on one of these unregulated Bitcoin exchanges. All I would recommend, if you're storing any large amount of Bitcoin for any length of time, that you put it on a hardware wallet and basically take care of your own security that way. But that being said, if we're going to do some targets here on GBTC, kind of using the same method that I've used on Bitcoin. So if we got our 1 up, 2 down, we're looking for a 1.618 extension just for a regular caliber third wave up. And again, this could certainly be exceeded on something like Bitcoin or GBTC, but let's just do that. So we'll do our 1.618 projection for large degree wave 3 up. And let me just sort this out. Okay, 1.618. Where does that get us to? So that gets us to 30 essentially. 30.58 will be the 1.618 extension here on GBTC. So from current levels of around 10 up to 30, you're looking at a nice triple there, which largely lines up with Bitcoin's expectations of us getting to maybe around 25,000 from current levels of around 9,000. Okay, so that's basically the bigger outlook here on GBTC. And then, of course, if we got up here in that third wave, you'd expect the fourth wave at some point, a multi-month fourth wave, and then another fifth wave up to new extreme. But that's looking far ahead at this point. So the focus for now should be more so on this daily chart and just this first impulse wave that we've begun developing here off that major low we had in October. All right, hopefully that was helpful. Again, GBTC, certainly a worthwhile thing to play, but my recommendation is not to play it for shorter term positions. Intraday is fine, but shorter term, a few days or a week or two, you may want to consider actually using Bitcoin for having a more reliable risk management system with stops and getting filled overnight or on the weekend if need be, that sort of thing. But for a more position-oriented or longer-term strategy, GBTC works quite well for kind of a buy and hold approach. Again, not buy and hold forever, but buy and hold at least for the duration of an expected large wave up or something like that. All right, hopefully that's helpful. Serial Trader signing off.